From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with David Gregory.
This Sunday, she's logged 100,000 miles traveling around the globe as Secretary of State, pushing President Obama's foreign policy goals as his top diplomat. This week in Asia, she confronted U.S. adversaries, trading barbs with the North Koreans.
There is no place to go for North Korea. They have no friends left.
And warning Iran against its nuclear ambitions.
If the United States extends a defense umbrella over the region, they won't be able to intimidate and dominate as they apparently believe they can once they have a nuclear weapon.
From the wars abroad in Afghanistan and Iraq to the battle at home over health care, what influence is she having on her former political rival, now the President of the United States? Our exclusive guest for the full hour, the former First Lady of the United States, Democratic Senator from the state of New York, and candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2008, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
You are Secretary of State. You are not, I should say, your portfolio does not include domestic matters, domestic political debates. And yet health care is obviously a huge debate right now in this country and for this administration. And this is what you said when you ended your run for the presidency, June 7th, 2008. Let's watch.
We all want a health care system that is universal, high quality, and affordable, so that parents don't have to choose between care for themselves or their children or be stuck in dead-end jobs simply to keep their insurance. This isn't just an issue for me. It is a passion and a cause, and it is a fight I will continue until every single American is insured, no exceptions and no excuses.
You've always been passionate about this. You're not involved in the current debate. But why is it so hard, do you think?
Well, David, it's hard because the system that we've seen grow up almost organically since World War II is so dysfunctional. And unfortunately, the incentives are often not in the right places to reward doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals for their outcomes, to really drive quality. And I applaud the president for taking it on right off the bat. You know, there are many problems we're dealing with in our country, and certainly he could have said, okay, fine, we'll get to that when we get to it, but he's waded right into it. And I am somewhat encouraged by what I see happening in the Congress. You know, I've been there. I know how hard this is.
Is it different than '93?
Oh, it is. It's different in several ways. It's different because I think everybody's now convinced there's a problem. Back in '93, we had to keep making the case over and over again. Well, now we know costs will continue to rise. For everybody who has insurance, there is no safe haven. Their costs will go up. We lose insurance for 14,000 people a day. We know that our system left unchecked is going to bankrupt not just families and businesses, but our country. So it is a central concern of President Obama and our administration.
And yet you wrote in your memoir, Living History, something that was very interesting. You wrote this: ultimately, we could never convince the vast majority of Americans who have health insurance that they wouldn't have to give up benefits and medical choices to help the minority of Americans without coverage. Nor could we persuade them that reform would protect them from losing insurance and would make their medical care more affordable in the future. And that's exactly the issue that President Obama is dealing with now. Do you think he's doing a better job getting over that hurdle?
I think he's making a very strong case. And what's important here is that people are always for change in general, and then they begin to worry about the particulars. As our process moves forward, we have legislation in both houses. We've had the committee I used to serve on, the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, so-called HELP committee, pass out a comprehensive bill. We're seeing action in the House. Then people will begin to see the particulars, and the legislative process will begin to try to, smooth out the rough edges and create the reassurances that people need. But what is so promising for me is that when I wrote that about our experience in the early 90s, there were still a lot of routes that people thought we could go down. Well, we'll try managed care, we'll get more HMOs, we'll be able to control costs for the people who have insurance. I'm talking now not about those who are uninsured, which I think is both a moral and an economic imperative, but the people without it, with it, and who are wondering, what's this going to mean for me? I think people now realize, I could be uninsured. the chances that businesses will continue to pay for insurance over the next 5, 10, 15 years are diminishing. I think, if I remember correctly, in 93 and 94, 61% of small businesses provided some kind of health insurance for their employees. It's down to 38%. So now everybody's worrying, and I think that gives the president a very strong case to make.
Has he sought out your counsel on this?
You know, we talk about everything. You know, I have a rule that I don't ever talk about what I talk about with presidents, whether it's my husband when he was president or now with President Obama, but
even domestic issues, you'll offer some
I'm
thoughts.
available to the president to talk about anything. Now, obviously, we have a pretty big portfolio that we have to deal with on the international stage.
Bottom line, do you think health care will pass this time?
I do. I think that the time has come. I think this president is committed to it. I think the leadership in Congress understands we have to do something, and I think we'll get it done.
Let me ask you about another big issue in the news this week, because Henry Louis Gates is also a friend of yours, in addition to being a friend of this president's. Professor Gates arrested, of course. You see the picture there in his Cambridge home. The president talked about it at a press conference and then showed up announced in the briefing room to address it further. What role do you think he plays or should play in sensitive matters like this?
Well, I think the president did an excellent job in addressing it on Friday when he went to the press room. And I think his point is very clear. He said, look, maybe I should have chosen different words, but he's going to have a beer with Professor Gates and Sergeant Crowley, and I think that's, you know, leadership by example, and I really commend him for that.
But, you know, it's interesting because issues of race obviously played out in the course of the campaign, and I wonder, do you think the president has a special responsibility and plays a special role in terms of race relations for the country?
Well, if something constructive can come out of this latest incident, it will be that people around the country are talking about the continuing challenges we face. You know, obviously the fact that the president exemplifies the progress that has been made over generations, the sacrifices of so many who came before, is a powerful statement in and of itself. His experience added to that, I think, is important for the country to see and to digest. But the president has said many times, he's the president of all the people in the United States. He's the president who, you know, wants to, you know, bring people together to solve problems and to make progress together.
All right, we're going to take another short break here and continue in our remaining minutes with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton after this brief station break.
We all want an America defined by deep and meaningful equality, from civil rights to labor rights, from women's rights to gay rights, from ending discrimination. There are no acceptable limits, and there are no acceptable prejudices in the 21st century in our country.
We have a common task and a common challenge.
Why can't we see that we are all in this together?
18 million of you from all walks of life. Women and men, young and old, Latino and Asian, African American and Caucasian, rich, poor and middle class, gay and straight, you have stood with me. And I will continue to stand strong with you every time, every place, and every way that I can. The dreams we share are worth fighting for.